Wonderful to see you, and thank you so much for making time to talk to me. I know it's been a crazy year for all of us. And as you know, in my work, I've been emphasizing well being, performance, and leadership across a variety of organizations. So I want to have a chance to explore with you a little bit what does that mean for you as a business leader, as a senior executive. So before we jump in there, tell us a little bit about your current role in organization in your organization.
Hi, good morning, and good to see you too. So, I have been in the finance and strategy side of things in corporate America for a couple of decades now. So recently, I have been focusing on leading finance strategy as a core, as well as technology and operations within the company. And it's a fairly large group of people and uh, pretty diverse based, mostly in North America, US, and Canada. We have some overseas outsourced teams in India, but most of the teams are here in the US. And yes, this last year has been pretty unusual in every way. And I think as you talk about well-being, that's sort of become much more in the forefront of not just being a phrase that people sometimes talk about, but the essence I think always was important, but the fact that people were not focused on that actively has certainly risen to realization and
You have had a stellar career working at some of the largest, most successful media companies in North America, in fact, in the world, for the last 20 years, based out of New York. What has helped you sustain that level of high performance for these 2 decades?
um, I don't think there's any one thing that I could point my finger to. I think it's uh, I've been incredibly fortunate, and I do recognize that. I've had some great leaders and mentors in my career all along the way uh, who have not just given me the opportunity to try and do things, but have given me have counseled and coached me along the way. And I think just like any other thing, be it sports or anything else, you learn by watching others perform well. And I've had a chance to be in the room and be in the company and influence of some really outstanding leaders and leadership, and applying some of how they conduct themselves, how they not just conduct business, but essentially how they work with people and teams and with themselves. I think it's a combination of all of those things. And yeah, the past 10, 12 years have been a big growth period for business across the world. And I think once again, I was fortunate to be a part of that wave.
Now, are there any specific strategies or tactics you've yourself adopted or you've seen others adopt that have sort of been particularly helpful?
It comes down to I think a few things that you can influence. And the first and foremost is obviously it's any success is not a personal success unless you have really good people on your team. And leaders need to be always mindful, and I think every good leader is aware that the success of the team and individuals in the team really gets the light shines on the leader, but it's everyone else who's really picking up a lot of the weight. So having really good talent, and I always would say hire the smartest people who are willing to work for you. That really helps. But other than that, applying the basic principles of perseverance. There's no substitute to spending the number of hours that you need to spend on doing things, I think creativity becomes very important. Whether it's a business issue, a challenge, a problem, if transformation, transition, those are things that are constantly happening in every business. And you have to have your intellectual hat, and you have a rule book to follow, but you have to have your creative hat. And you have to have, I think you have to allow your team, if you've hired them for the talent that they have, to be creative, and do what they do best, and do it naturally. And very often, you're dealing with issues, and issues are always urgent. And we've always discussed this in the past, trying to keep a balance between the urgent and the important, and giving the important stuff, the things that really matter, their due time and the due course they need. And once again, keeping people motivated comes down to a combination of all these things. And when you have talented people and they're motivated in a good place, mentally and emotionally, and if they work well as a team, because you can have very strong individuals, if they're not cohesive, you don't get the results you need. And all of that, goes in delivering results, which then obviously is good for everyone's career. And like I said, that has really helped me along the way. That's sort of been my guiding light. Good, strong people, and letting them do what they do best, and just making sure that they have the energy to perform at their peak as much as possible.
Oh, that's good, wonderful, and I love that you talked about energy and peak performance. And I know you led large technology transformation initiatives at these media companies. Tell me a little bit. How did what is the impact on individual team members? As your role as a team leader and team member, as a mentor to them, what is the impact of these long projects on their well-being, on their resilience, and on their performance, like 12, 18 months on mega transformation initiatives?
The question is how people, I guess, react, and how it affects people. How long projects that are heavy lifts and require, a certain amount of, personal sacrifice and long hours. I think there are, if I were to categorize people, I think generally in this context, there are three kinds of people. There are some folks who thrive in challenged, heavy workload environment. In fact, without that, that's what drives them. And without having a lot of a heavy bone to chew on, they don't feel good about themselves, and they're always coming up with ideas on what to do next. These are the people who actually initiate these kinds of projects, and they are the ones that will be leading it in the forefront most often. You got other people, a large majority, who see the benefit of the change, and as long as you're able to bring to them a real understanding of what you're trying to do, let alone the technological and the logistical challenges, but what is it that you're trying to do? How will things be better? And things could be business, it could be their personal lives, it could be a whole bunch of other things. But what difference does this make? And
It's
most people
about
get that.
purpose and passion.
Yes, conveying that meaningfully, and it's got to have a real difference to something that they need to believe in. And then you always have a group of people that is, inherently, lower energy, less motivated. We used to always joke about this. Where do you strike a balance between the smarts and the people who are passionate? You don't want the people who are smart who are not passionate, because that takes away energy on the other side. But fortunately, we haven't had too many of those. So you have the kind of you have the group of people that are usually high energy, and again, making that team cohesive is important. And then you've got the large group of people that is going to support them, because these transformations, whether it's a ERP in the cloud for finance, and then logistics and procurement, one after the other, or you're implementing Salesforce across 8 different sales teams in 20 different offices, things like that. You've got to keep showing small steps of success. I think that's one of the things where people, will believe in a dream, but if you tell them it's all coming down the road and there's no visibility to any kind of any impact on either their life or a colleague's life along the way, then the promise becomes very unreal. So letting the people who are really pushing for the change, who are leading the change, let them shine. Let people who are who have believed the dream, who have also taken taken your word for it, and who are now also instrumental in making the success, making the project succeed, and in every facet, letting them taste and see what's happening along the way. Let that be the focus. And if there's a group of people who is not as motivated, obviously you can't leave them behind, because do need everyone to participate. But energy levels are obviously always different across people in each of these groups. And then there are factors in a long process of 12 or 18 months. Individuals are affected in life, what's happening in their personal lives. There's a certain amount of fatigue that sets in at certain times. So you got to be aware of that. And sometimes, even the best bunch of people, can get exhausted, or can be at a certain point, and they have run-ins with each other. And you got to allow that for some time, and just not let there be, bad blood from that. So you allow open dialogue, you allow a certain amount of confrontation where it's necessary. Uh, no room for he said, she said, because that happens in organizations generally. And I had a boss who, if he heard anyone talking about somebody else, he would bring the boss in the room immediately, no delay, and said, "You said this, and you said this. What's the truth?" And I think that mindset of not bickering in the back, or bickering to your boss at any level, keeping things open and honest, is I think very important. But it is hard. It's stressful for anything that goes on for that long, whether 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, with there's so many people involved, to keep it all in check. And it's never perfect, but you also got to allow for that.
Yeah, you've touched on some really important points here, right? Like motivation is important. How do you help people see the bigger picture, find meaning and purpose in the project, but also a sense of accomplishment, that small weekly progress milestones really help people feel like they're working towards something and achieving something that is meaningful. I also like this idea of you're talking about creating that safe space where people can have open, frank conversations, but yet there's a high degree of accountability, so they're responsible for the outcomes of the project. Yeah, and in just like in any other project, there will be days, in just people's normal life, there will be good days and there are bad days. And how do you help people overcome some of the obstacles and challenges? And especially in this year, Ajay, with COVID, there's a whole another level of challenges people are facing in their personal lives and their professional lives. And as you sort of think forward, and you look at what comes next after this, what may be a couple of your priorities for leading your organization and your teams?
I think a lot of people who didn't like each other's company will appreciate it a lot more after having spent so much time at home. But jokes aside, I think the fact that the the things that people have gone through, and we've been very fortunate to have not been personally affected. We have been safe and been very fortunate in that sense, and our families have been safe. But many people have experienced a lot of individual and family stress and distress during this time. I think the sensitivity of people's emotional well-being will probably be a little bit more real, and the realization that people need to be in a certain emotional state of mind to not just perform well, but for the group to succeed at whatever they are doing, for companies to do well in what they're doing, will be a little bit more real. And I remember talking to you, first maybe a few years ago, about mental well-being. And I always thought that I was considerate with my team, and so was I've been very fortunate. Like I said, I've had people who've been very wise, and I would say they had a high EQ, but there was never any formal setting to actually focus on um, to have a structured format where people can actually take time and think about how they are approaching this particular aspect of professional and personal lives as well. There's always training and management training and other leadership training that's always existed, and knowing that you're always working with people and relationships, and there's nothing more important than that, whether it's your people within the organization or customers. So it's always about people, but the whole well-being aspect of it, I think since we started talking a few years ago, 2 years ago, I think at this point, it certainly made me think about that much more consciously and much more deliberately. And I think making time, again, this is a time for what's urgent versus important, right? There's always urgent things. But I think it's very important to actually keep a mindset that, allow people, like I said, I would allow people to, when sometimes in a project or otherwise, there is either low energy, a little bit of conflict, a little bit of a project is not going the best way possible, or something has happened. People take it very personally. To try to diffuse that, I think building in a core, a curriculum of a way where people can actually stress. I think I've always used humor a little bit in trying to diffuse situations, but often that also just skips over what people might be. If somebody's not particularly feeling great that day, humor is not going to help. But focusing on the general well-being of the team, and sometimes where some people, like I said, may require a little bit more hand holding, or a little bit more space, and everyone responds to things differently. So knowing that, and trying to between business leaders and HR teams and leadership to promote that sort of thinking itself will be a huge I think a huge step forward.
Yeah, and we've learned so much from science in the last few years around what affects our well-being mentally, emotionally, physically, and we also have examples of people thriving amidst the most horrendous and difficult conditions. So there's a lot of learnings from sports, from academia, from healthcare, from crisis situations that people are in, that can help all of us be more resilient and perform better. And I think you're right. We've not sort of formally been taught these skills, or not traditionally, but seems to be more of an appetite for it and a need for it in some organizations. So,
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's
yeah.
exactly it. Yeah, you're having it's something that you expected to mature and grow into and learn along the way, but it's never really taught, and it's never really formally you read books on leadership, and they all talk about the same thing that you're saying, whether it's crisis management or sports people under stress. But recognizing that as a group within organizations, and to actually have a structured uh, you know um, uh, place where people can actually uh, grow individually and collectively in this space would be, I think, something that we'll all see a lot more of.
Yeah, and the ability to do it as a team together definitely has a certain level of impact and benefit for the organization. Ajay, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time today. Is there anything else in passing you would want to mention to other leaders, business leaders, and business executives?
I don't think I have any wise words to pass on. I think everyone is in uh, has really been through a lot in these past 12 months. So I wish well to all our colleagues and friends, and hope that the next few months we see ourselves coming out of the worst of the pandemic. But I think for me, I've had. I think uh, a much better way of looking at things, and I probably had a part of this somewhere in the back of my head. Having gone through any kind of personal crisis situation, I would always think forward and say that you want to be in a stressful situation. You want to look back at that point and never be embarrassed of how you behaved yourself or treated other people. And yes, I think the collective well-being is certainly very important. Just knowing that every person in the group is different, and every day everyone comes into the office, or when you're working from home or whatever, the mindset of everyone is different at different times, and just recognizing that, being aware of that, and yet trying to get things done to the best possible way. And mostly generally people want to do the right thing. Just knowing that is you just have to remind yourself of that at all times.
I think we can leave it at that. The true test of leadership is how you lead in difficult times. So thank you,
It is.
Ajay,
It
for
is.
those words of wisdom.
Thank you, Gautam. Great talking to you.